maybe we should dive into the tech for a moment before we dive into the how to. What are you seeing in the space in terms of privacy tech startups and players that are trying to change the status quo?
Yeah, there's a lot of innovation going on that definitely, and part of that is because of regulations like the GDPR. So there's a lot of solution emerging to solve specific issues related to the legal aspect of it. What I like to look at, of course, those are important, but I think things that are maybe more challenging or more ambitious, like one of the startup that I'm involved with is called Cabin in New York. They are working on zero-party data, but with a slight difference to the definition that Forrester gave a few years ago, like 3 years ago. When Forrester defined zero-party data, they created the term. They said it's data that is willingly given by the consumer to a brand. But they forgot the most important aspect. Who has control over this data? So to me, even if I'm willingly giving you my email address and so on, but then the brand runs away with it and I don't have any control, it's still first-party data to me. Zero-party data to me, what it means is, as the customer, I keep total control over what I want to share with which brands, for which purpose, for how long, and so on. But it's a huge challenge because that's not how the internet and the web evolved over the years. And switching this back to giving the power to the customer is probably the biggest change that can happen, because it means that you need to have authentication to know, is this the real person, right? You need authentication, you need security, you need control, you need transparency. But in such a scenario, if I'm the customer and I'm saying, oh yes, I like this brand, and they're asked politely and giving me the right value proposition, I'm willing to give them my email, my name, my address, my phone, my date of birth, gender, and all kinds of interests, because I trust the brand, but I still retain the control. So if one day I decide that I don't want to do business with them anymore, I can pull that out and say, I'm sorry, but for whatever reason, I don't want to be a customer of your brand anymore.
It's a breakup.
It's a breakup. Yeah. And again, it goes back to building trust. And imagine the value for the brand. Imagine the value of this data. You know the person who willingly gave it to you. They have absolutely no reason to put crap in there because they know they retain the control over it. So the value of the data is going to be much, much, much better than trying to force people, because what we hear is, oh, you need to collect more first-party data, so let's find all kinds of ways to collect more of it.
Race to the bottom.
Doing contests or whatnot, just in order to get some crappy data.
Yeah, it goes back to measuring the wrong thing, right? Like we're so fixated with numbers. We want a big number to show that we're doing our job, but reality is trust cannot really be encapsulated with a number. And if you can, it's not by driving that number up that you increase trust. It's like the causal chain goes the other way. You first build trust and then numbers go up, not the other way. So with zero-party data, basically, is the idea is that we are in complete control of our personal information. But from a technical standpoint, is it another tool? Do we create our identity in one central database, federated, that ticks all the boxes, and then sort of link that up?
Yeah, there's a couple of important points. One is the authentication aspects. When you go to a website, typically you either provide your email and a password, or you authenticate with one of the big players like LinkedIn or Microsoft or Google or Twitter or Facebook and so on, right? Why does it have to be that way? What if the authentication mechanism was a trusted, just like an escrow, for example, where their mission is really to protect your authentication mechanism, right? And then if you use something like one password or something like that, we know that there are ways to have secure data that sits on your device that is encrypted and secure while also being synchronized somewhere in the cloud that is also secured, and they don't even have the password. They have simply no means. It's impossible to decrypt what is there. So what is it, let's say to use the Caden terminology, they call it the vault. So you have your own vault, a bit like a bank. You have the control, you decide, you have the key to it, and you decide what you want to share. But it needs to be done in a way that is transparent enough so that there's no difficulty, no challenges in using it on your phone, on your desktop, or something like that. But
frictionless as well, because
frictionless, user friendly.
Yeah.
And then yes, you can put all the nice keychain and a blockchain and so on in there to make sure that it's secured, and you follow the data so that it doesn't get replicated and doesn't get reused in a context that you don't agree to.
I love that. In the conversation with Doug Laney on Infonomics, we talked about the non-depletable aspect of the asset, being digital assets. The fact that we can make copies of pictures, we can make copies of data sets, and nobody, unless we take the necessary precautions, nobody can tell whether, it's A or B, which one is the original.
That's why blockchain, NFTs, that a more interesting way to think about NFTs than simply having an exclusive picture that you're the only one in the world who has the right to it, right? What if NFTs was attached to the data that you share so that it cannot be replicated or cannot be used in another context that you didn't agree to? So I think that becomes, it's a big challenge. And of course, Caden is not the only one looking into it, but it's exciting. Like, I don't think I've been excited like that since I've started working 35 years ago.